There are moments in life that divide everything into before and after. Moments so powerful they change how you see yourself, the people you love, and what you believe is even possible. For me, that moment came on a quiet Tuesday morning in late September when I woke up to something that would change my life forever. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's start where all the best stories begin, with loneliness, denial, and a Craigslist ad. My name is Alex Chen, and 6 months ago I was desperately searching for a roommate in Seattle. My salary as a junior graphic designer barely covered half the rent for my small Capitol Hill apartment. After my old roommate moved out to live with his girlfriend, I was left drowning in bills and living on instant ramen. That's when I met Ethan Morrison. I still remember the day he showed up for the apartment viewing. Rain tapped gently against the windows as I opened the door and saw him, 6 feet of quiet charm, with messy sandy brown hair falling over his forehead, warm hazel eyes, and a smile that looked both shy and sincere. "Hi, I'm Ethan," he said, reaching out his hand. His grip was firm but kind, and I couldn't help but notice the faint paint stains on his fingers. "Thanks for fitting me in. I know I'm probably the 20th person you've seen today." He was actually the third, but I didn't correct him. Ethan was everything I wasn't: spontaneous where I was cautious, hopeful where I was guarded, open where I had built walls. He was a landscape painter trying to make a name for himself in Seattle's art scene, paying the bills with part-time shifts at a coffee shop in Pike Place Market. When he walked through the apartment, he didn't just see rooms, he saw possibilities. "This light," he said, standing by the living room window, "it must be beautiful here in the morning. Golden hour must be magic." I decided right then and there he was the one. What I didn't tell him, what I hadn't told anyone, was that I was gay. 26 years old and still carrying that truth like a stone in my chest, too heavy to speak, too sharp to swallow. My parents were traditional Chinese immigrants who had given up everything for my future. Coming out felt like setting fire to their dreams. So I lived in between, present but invisible. Smiling when I was supposed to, laughing just enough to seem okay, but never too much. And then Ethan moved in, and everything got complicated. Living with him was like living with sunlight. He filled the apartment with warmth and life, canvases leaning against walls, the air smelling of coffee and paint, soft music drifting through the rooms. He talked to strangers in elevators, made friends with our elderly neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, and somehow turned our dull balcony into a tiny jungle of herbs and wildflowers. He was also, or so I thought, completely straight. He'd talk about his ex-girlfriend, Rachel, who had broken his heart the year before. Sometimes he went on dates, coming home late with that quiet kind of disappointment that says, "I tried, but it wasn't right." And me. I learned how to survive on proximity without possibility. I learned to look away when he stepped out of the shower, hair damp and towel wrapped low. I learned to steady my voice when he brushed my arm casually, the way friends do without thinking. I learned to laugh when he called himself a disaster at relationships. We built a rhythm. Mornings meant coffee in the kitchen, him half awake and impossibly beautiful in the soft light, me pretending to scroll my phone. Evenings meant cooking together, him messy and creative, me following recipes to the letter. Weekends meant exploring the city, hiking trails, used bookstores, late-night diners. We became best friends in that quiet, painful way that only happens when you love someone who will never love you back. 3 months into living together, something started to change. It began small: a look that lingered too long, a question that felt too careful. He'd study me like he was trying to understand something about himself. One Friday night, after a bottle of wine and a movie, he turned to me. The glow from the TV lit his face. "Alex," he said softly, "can I ask you something personal?" My heart skipped. "Sure," I said. He hesitated, fingers picking at the label on his beer bottle. "Are you happy?" The question caught me completely off guard. "What do you mean?" I asked. "You just seem like you're always holding something back," he said gently. "Like you're only showing people part of yourself. I just want you to know, whatever it is, you're safe here, with me." I should have told him then. I should have been brave. But instead, I laughed it off. "Too much wine makes you philosophical, Morrison." He smiled, but there was a flicker of sadness in his eyes. Yeah, probably. We never finished the movie that night. The moment hung between us, heavy with words neither of us could say. And after that, everything changed. Every glance lasted a little too long. Every touch seemed to linger. And deep down, I knew whatever this was between us, it wasn't just friendship anymore. Every time our eyes met, I felt like I was both drowning and being rescued at the same time. So I threw myself into work, staying late at the office, taking every freelance job I could find. Anything to avoid being in that apartment, anything to avoid Ethan and the impossible feeling of wanting someone I could never have. But Ethan noticed, of course he did. "You're avoiding me," he said one night, cornering me in the kitchen. It was past midnight, I thought he'd already gone to bed. "I'm not," I lied. "You are." His voice wasn't angry, just firm and full of quiet concern. "Did I do something wrong? Did I cross a line somehow?" "No, Ethan, God, no." "Then what is it?" He stepped closer. I could smell him, that familiar mix of paint, coffee, and pine, something warm, something him. "Talk to me, Alex, please." Something inside me broke. The walls I had built over years, the silence I'd carried since I was 16, all of it began to crumble. "I can't," I whispered. "Why not?" "Because if I tell you the truth, everything changes, and I can't lose you, I can't lose this." Ethan's expression softened. Slowly, carefully, he reached out and placed a hand on my shoulder. "You're not going to lose me," he said quietly, "whatever it is. I'm gay." The words tumbled out before I could stop them, sharp, terrifying, real. "I'm gay and I'm in love with you, and I know you're straight and it's completely unfair to you, but I can't keep pretending anymore. I can't keep living like this." The silence that followed felt endless. Ethan's hand slipped from my shoulder. His eyes widened, emotions flickering across his face too quickly to name. Shock, confusion, maybe something else. "Alex," he breathed. I didn't wait to hear the rest. I turned and ran to my room, closing the door behind me with shaking hands. I pressed my back against it, sliding to the floor, my heart hammering so hard I thought it might break through my ribs. From the other side of the door, I heard him. Footstep, then silence. "Alex," he said finally, his voice muffled, "please come out, let's talk about this." But I couldn't, not then, not yet. I heard him sigh and walk away, then the apartment went still. Exhausted from the adrenaline and the years of hiding, I crawled into bed and fell into a restless sleep, certain I had just destroyed the best thing in my life. When I woke the next morning, sunlight was pouring through my curtains. And then the memory hit sharp and heavy. I told him. "Oh God," I whispered, I told him. For a moment I thought about never leaving my room again. I could live off delivery apps, quit my job, communicate only through sticky notes slipped under doors. But then I noticed something strange. My bedroom door was slightly open. And on my nightstand, where nothing had been the night before, sat a mug of coffee, still steaming. Next to it a note. Ethan's handwriting. "Don't run away, please come find me." My hands shook as I picked up the mug. It was made exactly how I liked it, oat milk, no sugar, a hint of cinnamon. He had come into my room, seen me sleeping, vulnerable. And instead of leaving, he'd left me coffee and a note asking me to stay. I got dressed slowly, my mind racing through possibilities. Best case, he wanted to talk, to let me down gently. Worst case, he'd already decided to move out. When I finally opened my door, Ethan was on the couch. Same clothes as last night, hair even messier, dark circles under his eyes. But there was something different in his expression, something that almost looked like hope. "Hey," he said softly when he saw me. "Hey," I replied, clutching the coffee like a lifeline, "thanks for this." "Sit down," he patted the couch beside him. I hesitated and chose the chair across instead, safer. He noticed but didn't say anything. "I didn't sleep last night," he began. "After you told me, after you went to your room, I just sat here thinking." He drew in a deep breath. "I need to tell you some things, important things, but first you need to know you haven't destroyed anything, you could never destroy us." Relief washed over me, almost painfully strong. "Ethan, I'm so sorry, I never should have put that on you." "Stop," he said gently but firmly. "Don't apologize for telling the truth, don't apologize for being yourself." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, eyes locked on mine. Do you remember when I came home from that date with Emma about a month ago? I nodded. He'd been unusually quiet that night. I told you it didn't work because we didn't have chemistry. That was true, but it wasn't the whole truth. He paused, exhaling shakily. The whole night, all I could think about was coming home to you. To our apartment, to the way you hum when you cook, the way you focus when you're designing, the way you laugh at my terrible jokes. My breath caught. Ethan. I'm not finished, he said softly, his voice trembling just a little. For months, I've been trying to understand why nothing felt right with anyone else, why every date felt off, why I kept sabotaging relationships before they even began. I told myself it was because of Rachel that I wasn't over her, but that wasn't it. He stood and began packing, running his hand through his hair. Last night when you told me you were gay, when you said you were in love with me, Alex, it was like someone turned on the lights in a room I'd been stumbling through in the dark. Everything suddenly made sense. My voice barely came out. What are you saying? Ethan stopped packing, looked directly at me. I'm saying that after you went to bed, I sat here questioning everything I thought I knew about myself. I've spent my whole life assuming I was straight because that's what made sense, that's what people expected. I never questioned it because I never had a reason to. He moved closer, sitting on the edge of the coffee table, his eyes searching mine. But then I met you, and everything I thought I knew started to change. I told myself it was just friendship, just admiration, just two guys getting along, but Alex. His voice cracked. It was never just friendship, not for me. The room fell completely silent. I could hear my heartbeat echoing in my ears. Ethan's voice softened. I don't have it all figured out, I don't know what label fits me or if I even need one, but I know what I feel when I look at you. What I do know, Ethan said softly, is that I've been falling for you since the night we watched the sunset from our balcony. You told me about your dream of starting your own design studio and I just couldn't look away. I know that when you laugh, really laugh, it feels like the best sound I've ever heard. And the thought of you moving out, of losing you. His voice cracked, it makes me feel like I can't breathe. Tears streamed down my face and I didn't even try to hide them. Last night, Ethan continued, his eyes shimmering, while you were asleep I did something I need you to see. He stood and motioned toward the hallway. Come with me. On shaking legs, I followed him to his room. When he opened the door, I froze. The walls, once bare except for a few old concert posters, were now covered in paintings, but these weren't his usual landscapes, they were me. Me reading on the couch, sunlight in my hair. Me cooking in the kitchen, brow furrowed in concentration. Me laughing, eyes bright. Even one of me asleep, peaceful, vulnerable. There were dozens, some finished, others still in progress. A collection of moments I hadn't realized anyone was watching, let alone immortalizing. I started painting you 3 months ago, Ethan said quietly from behind me. At first I told myself it was just practice, just working with light, but I couldn't stop. Every time I picked up a brush, it was your face I saw. I stepped closer to a canvas, me on our balcony, the city glowing in the distance. Every detail radiated care, tenderness. This morning, while you were sleeping, he said, voice thick with emotion, I finished the last one, the one of you at peace. I wanted you to wake up and see what I see, to understand that this, whatever this is between us, it's not one-sided, it never was. I turned toward him, tears blurring my vision. Ethan, I can't believe this, I'm terrified. He nodded. So am I, I'm terrified because this is all new to me, I'm scared I won't be what you need, that I'll mess this up, but I'm more afraid of walking away without trying, of spending my life wondering what if. The space between us pulsed with 6 months of unspoken feelings and the weight of this single moment. I'm scared too, I whispered. I've been hiding for so long I don't even know how not to be. Ethan stepped closer, his voice trembling but steady. Then let's be scared together. I'm not asking you to teach me how to be anything or to wait while I figure myself out. I'm just asking, can we figure it out together? Can we take this chance? You're sure? I asked, my heart pounding. You're really sure? Instead of answering, he reached out and gently cupped my face in his paint-stained hands. His thumb brushed away a tear. I've never been more sure of anything, he said softly. "Can I kiss you?" I nodded. And then his lips were on mine, soft, tentative, perfect. The kiss was everything a first kiss should be, nervous and hopeful and full of promise. It tasted like coffee and new beginnings, like the end of loneliness. When we finally pulled apart, breathless, he rested his forehead against mine. "We're really doing this?" I asked, barely daring to believe it. "We're really doing this?" he whispered back, smiling that same shy smile that undid me the very first day. The next few weeks were a beautiful mess of discovery and vulnerability. Ethan approached our relationship with the same creative passion he brought to his art, diving in completely, asking questions, wanting to understand everything. He read about LGBTQ plus history, watched coming out stories, even joined me at a pride planning meeting at the local community center. When he introduced himself there as Alex's boyfriend, my heart nearly stopped. But it wasn't always easy. Ethan was on his own journey too. His parents were kind but confused, his friends were supportive but surprised. He tried on labels: bisexual, pansexual, queer, before finally settling on, "I'm still figuring it out and that's okay." Sometimes his uncertainty fed my own fears. One night, about a month into our relationship, I lay awake beside him. He was asleep, one arm draped across my waist. I stared at the ceiling, lost in spiraling thoughts. What if this is just a phase? What if he wakes up one day and realizes I was only an experiment? "I can hear you thinking," Ethan murmured sleepily. "Your anxiety," so loud it woke me up. "Sorry," I whispered. He opened his eyes, studying me in the soft light from the window. "Talk to me, what's wrong?" "It's nothing," I said too quickly. "It's stupid." "Alex," he propped himself up on one elbow, "we promised no more hiding." I took a shaky breath. "I'm just scared you'll wake up one day and realize this was a mistake, that I'm not what you actually want." He was silent for a moment, then sat up and turned on the lamp. "Look at me," he said gently. I did. "My sexuality might be complicated," he said, his voice steady. "I might not have all the answers about who I am, but what I feel for you, that's not complicated, that's the clearest thing in my life." He reached for my hand, intertwining our fingers. "You're not an experiment, Alex, you're not a phase, you're the person I choose every single day. The person I want to build a life with. Yeah, I'm still figuring some things out, but you're not one of them, you're the part I'm absolutely sure of." I blinked back tears. "How do you always know exactly what to say?" He smiled. "Because I love you." My breath caught. You love me." "I don't think I've said that yet," he said softly, "but I do. I love you, Alex Chen. I love your careful heart, your brilliant mind, and the way you've taught me it's okay to not have everything figured out." "I love you too," I whispered. The words felt like freedom, raw, terrifying, and real. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid. "Then let's be scared together," Ethan said softly, echoing the words from that first morning. "But let's not let fear stop us from having this." He pulled me into his arms, and for the first time I let myself truly sink into the safety of his embrace, finally believing that maybe, just maybe, this was real. The hardest conversation came 3 months later. My parents were coming to Seattle for Thanksgiving, and I knew I couldn't hide anymore. Not when Ethan and I were building something real, not when I finally had something worth fighting for. "You don't have to do this if you're not ready," Ethan said the night before they arrived. "I can stay at a friend's place, they don't have to know yet." But I shook my head. "No, I've been hiding my whole life, I'm done living in the shadows." Telling my parents was the hardest thing I'd ever done. We sat in the living room, me and Ethan on one couch, my parents on the other, and I finally spoke the words I'd rehearsed 1,000 times but never had the courage to say. "Mom, Dad, I'm gay, and this is Ethan, he's my boyfriend." The silence that followed felt endless. My mother's eyes filled with tears and I braced myself for rejection, but then she said something I never expected. "We know." I stared at her. "We've known for years," my father added gently. "Since high school, maybe earlier, we were just waiting for you to be ready to tell us. But you always talked about me finding a nice wife, giving you grandchildren." My mother reached across the coffee table and took my hand. "We said those things because we thought that's what you wanted to hear. We were trying to make life easier for you, but maybe we only made it harder. We're sorry for that." Tears blurred my vision. You're not disappointed. Never, my father said firmly. You're our son, we love you exactly as you are, we just want you to be happy. My mother turned to Ethan, who had been sitting quietly, holding my other hand. Is he good to you? She asked. The best, I managed to say. Then he's family, she said simply. And just like that, years of fear melted away. When my parents left that night, after staying for dinner and admiring all of Ethan's paintings, Ethan pulled me into a tight hug. See, he whispered, I told you it would be okay. You were right, I said, smiling through tears. For the first time, I truly believed it. A year later, I woke up to find Ethan already awake beside me. We'd finally merged our lives completely, my old room now his studio, the master bedroom our shared space. Morning, he said, smiling that smile that still made my heart skip. I have something for you. He handed me an envelope. Inside was an invitation, his first solo gallery exhibition opening next month. Ethan, this is incredible. Look at the title, he said, eyes sparkling. I read it aloud. Coming Home, a collection. My breath caught as I understood. These are the paintings of me. Of us, he corrected softly. I called it Coming Home because that's what you are to me, home. The place where I finally figured out who I was, where I learned that it's okay not to have all the answers as long as you have the right person to explore the questions with. I kissed him then, deep, long, full of joy. There's one more thing, he said, reaching into his nightstand. He pulled out a small silver key, a rainbow flag keychain attached. I know we already live together, he said, suddenly shy, but I wanted to make it official. This is your key to my heart, to our home, to our future. I want to keep building this life with you, Alex, not as roommates, not just as boyfriends, as partners, as family. I laughed through happy tears. Is this your way of asking me to renew the lease together? It's my way of saying I never want to live without you again, he said. It's my way of saying let's keep choosing each other, every single day. I took the key, holding it like something sacred. Always, I whispered, I choose you always. 2 years after Ethan first moved into my apartment, we stood in that same living room now filled with our shared life. His paintings covered the walls, my design projects sat scattered across the desk, photos of us at Pride, at family gatherings. On hikes, proof of a life built on courage, truth, and love. Our elderly neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, loved to tell people our story, how she watched two strangers become roommates, then friends, then soulmates. How she witnessed two people learning to be brave enough to reach for happiness. Looking back now, I realize the most important moment wasn't when Ethan painted me while I slept. It was when I woke up and chose to be brave, when I decided that hope was worth the risk. Love isn't about grand gestures or perfect moments. It's about choosing each other every day. It's about being brave enough to be seen fully, completely, and trusting that you won't be turned away. It's about finding someone who sees you, really sees you, and paints you into their life with such care that you finally understand. You were never meant to hide. You were meant to be someone's masterpiece. And in loving them, you discover that you're not just their art, they're yours too. If you're out there hiding part of yourself, afraid that the truth will destroy everything, I want you to know something. The people who truly love you are waiting for your truth. And if you're like Ethan, still figuring out who you are, that's okay. Identity isn't a destination, it's a journey. You don't need all the answers, you just need the courage to ask the questions. To anyone who's ever fallen for their best friend, their roommate, or the person they thought they could never have, sometimes the impossible is just waiting for you to be brave enough to reach for it. Our story isn't special because it's rare. It's special because it's real. Because it proves that love doesn't follow a script, it writes its own if you're brave enough to let it. 2 years ago, I thought coming out would cost me everything. What I didn't know was that it would actually give me everything. Freedom, authenticity, love, home. That Tuesday morning when I woke up to coffee, a note, and the moment that changed my life, that was only the beginning. Every morning since has been another chance to choose love, to choose courage, to choose each other. And that's a story worth telling,